Hey, welcome to another episode of Stoke Meter. And needless to say, we are stoked for our guests here. We have Rob and Zaynah Fry. We were introduced to these two from Gary upstairs over here. I don't know where he is on your screen or not, but with that being said, Zaynah, you are a recent doctoral recipient, right?
Indeed.
I'm pumped. Congratulations, because that's a big deal.
Thank you. Yeah, I finished in November. It was a long time coming. Now I have to figure out what's next. I'm trying to get my husband to let me go to law school.
Oh, but, trouble.
The last thing he needs is a lawyer in the house. I can tell already.
If you're just listening to this, Rob is just shaking his head and looking over to the other side, man. Not even looking.
My thing is, you are now a doctor. Do something with that education before you decide you want to be a lawyer.
We'll see.
And Zaynah is also the Director of Ancillary Services at one of the local hospitals there in the Tucson arena. And Rob, man, I got to read some of this stuff on Rob. Okay, so Zaynah just gave me this little snippet about her because she didn't want to implicate herself on some of the different things there. And then, then this whole... It's gigantic, Rob. You want me to read this thing?
Yeah, I'm curious.
So he's far more interesting than I am. So there's a lot more to say about him.
Well, it's amazing because you were adopted at 2 weeks old.
Yep.
And spent time in a boys' home, had a pretty rough childhood, managed to graduate school and in time to receive a full basketball scholarship to Western Michigan University.
Yep.
And you played all 4 years. You seriously lived in Milan, Italy?
I did.
Ah, nice. And playing professional basketball, right?
Correct.
Oh my goodness. And then you worked toward a psychology degree, and then you went into the police department. Holy moly, she wrote an epistle about you, didn't she? And your big passion right now is to work with kids and developing a grassroots youth basketball program and keeping kids out of trouble, pretty much.
Yeah, that's pretty much been what I've wanted to do all my life. Just because I was one of those kids that, my upbringing was not the best. My mom set me in the middle of the street at 2 weeks old and walked away.
Man.
You go from that to living in the projects, to having 19 people in the house, start selling drugs at 12 years old, getting a basketball scholarship and playing professional basketball, and then being hired by the mayor to work for the police department and work with you and do all those different things. It's like, hey, if I can save one life, I feel like I did my job. And of course, basketball is my passion. So I kind of incorporate, helping kids build those skills through basketball. So yeah.
So I'm always the way back time machine guy. So you just glossed over a whole bunch of stuff, man.
That was
you gotta go. You gotta slow down, man. You gotta pump the brakes.
He gave you a lot, right?
I know.
Well, so Zaynah, we got to go to you now, though. You purposely left out your epistle. Rob didn't even have a chance to really get into what you were doing right there. Yeah. But first of all, how did you two meet and what's your story?
So I will let him talk about how we met. Funny story. You can go ahead and do that.
So that's actually my favorite story of this relationship. I was just telling her this earlier. So by trade, I'm also a barber. So when I graduated high school, I graduated with a barber's license. But once basketball, all that stuff was over with, I was like, I can go back to being a barber. So the way we met, she came into the barbershop, and I don't know if someone referred them or
it was a referral.
Okay, so her and her sister were referred, and I'll be honest, when her and her sister first came in, all the men in the shop were like, "Oh shit!" Oh, I mean, I don't know if I can curse on here. But we were like, "Wow!" And then we were like, "No, they're gay. That's a couple." And so we're like, well, they're not thinking about us. So that was it. So one day I'm cutting my stepson Idris, I'm cutting his hair, and he stopped and said, "Hey, Mr. Rob, do you have a wife or a girlfriend?" I'm like, "No, Idris, why?" He said, "Well, my aunt thinks you're cute. My mom has a crush on you." I said, "What if I didn't want them? What if they didn't want me to know that?" He was like, "Well, too late now."
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
They were scoping you out, man.
I found that out.
Yeah, we were on the fly. It takes my kid that has no filter to say something for me because I didn't have the balls to do it. So
Hey, that worked. Whatever it takes, get to point A to point B.
Well, and
yeah,
your background then, Zaynah, as well, is it where'd you grow up and then how'd you come up? That is quite a transition because I'm ABD, all but dissertation, right? I burnt out. There's no way. I'm done. So, oh man, I'm done. I'm done. But knowing what you just accomplished right there, you got to give us that backstory. I mean, I already know without a doubt that it's an inspirational story. So,
Well, and you can't gloss over all the other academic accomplishments.
Oh yes,
you've done as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's insane.
yeah. So opposite of Rob, I kind of grew up privileged. I grew up in a military family. So my dad was a Marine, and I got to travel the world. And I went to high school in Japan, and that's where I graduated from. And then from there, I went right into the military. I went into the Air Force. And I did 11 years in the Air Force. Backing up a little bit, which is significant for me, having just completed my degree. I got pregnant at 15 years old. I was a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
My daughter was born when I was 16, and it was my junior year. And so to me, that's significant because I've been able to overcome that, which is significant.
Oh yes.
Of course, with the help of my family. And create a career for myself in the military. No student debt. The military has paid for all 4 of my degrees.
Isn't she lucky?
Oh yeah, big time.
All 4 of my degrees, so I have no debts. And just pushing forward. And I'm the type of person where if somebody tells me that I can't do something or I'm not going to be successful at something, that's going to push me that's my motivation.
Yeah.
So when I got pregnant, I heard, "Oh, you're not going to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. You're going to be a welfare mother." And to me, that was my motivation.
Yeah.
And so graduating with my doctorate degree in November was kind of my middle finger to everybody who said, you weren't going to accomplish anything. So I have very supportive parents, and they adopted my daughter when she was born. So legally, she's my sister.
That's weird. Now, you talk about weird.
So she's my sister daughter.
Oh, that's so cool.
That
Yeah,
is
she's my
awesome. That is awesome. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So yeah, I had very supportive family, and they helped me. Like I said, they adopted my daughter, and they took care of her until she was 10 years old, so that I could do what I needed to do in the military to start my career and set a solid foundation for myself, go to school. I don't think if it had not been for them, I would not be where I am right now.
Wow.
Because they were instrumental into helping me become who I am right now.
First of all, thank you for your service. Yeah, we're military fans. We've had a number of guests from the military, but also massive kudos to your parents. Holy moly, that is gigantic, and just to hear that in and of itself is it's truly inspirational, because I know how hard the doctorate is. There's no doubt about that. We're going through the military, having a sister daughter and everything that's
so weird.
It's amazing. And just to see your career progression. Gary reminds me of another guest. We had a woman named Barbie the Welder, and she wrote a book. It was called FU Fuel. I won't say the full word, but you get the gist of it. And it's basically her just saying, yeah, forget about it. I'll use that as energy And I've got to ask you, because she said that once she got away from the so-called gravitational pull of that anger toward other people, telling her she couldn't do it or whatever it might be, she found that she was in an area that she realized she didn't have to hold that anymore, and then grew and started to influence so many others. Would you say that's about the same thing that happened with you?
No.
No, nice. I like it.
No, I kept it. I kept that energy. Yes. And I still have it. I still have it, even though, I've completed that terminal degree. I still have aspirations, and I'm going to continue every step that I take on that ladder. I'm going to, it's going to be, haha, I did it.
It's the potential law degree.
It's a potential.
So,
hey, just remember, military has her back, right?
So I have to tell you, Marie. So I go into Zaynah's office because she has this big, massive tub of mints, and I'm helpless against our powers. But more than anything, I go. It's just so fun to sit down and just hear what am I going to do next? I want to do this. I want to do. And the thing is, she's dead serious. Like, watch out, it's going to happen.
Gary, I hear it every day.
So
I come home today, and she's on the porch after doing this symposium that she was doing for work. And she says, "Hey, I started a Mary Kay business." What? Like, where did this come from?
That was very impulsive. It was just like, I'm going to do this, like super impulsive.
Oh yeah.
So
well,
that's what I deal with.
She's the type, Maurice, that so she came onto the hospital with one department. And at the same time, I didn't even realize she was doing her doctorate at the time. She's like, you know what? I'm bored. Give me like 2 more on top of that.
Oh,
so she ended up running, was it 3 departments?
It's 3 now.
3 departments while doing her doctorate, while handling this guy, this Rob dude, a bunch of kids running around. I mean, it's amazing. It's fun to watch.
Oh man. Well, it's awesome to hear that backstory, because there's a lot of people that have been through a lot of things that you've gone through, and it's just a testament that it can be done. And it's not all kumbaya. It's grit, it's hard work, and you did it. And that's what leads me to transition over to Rob. Rob, man, I mean, 19 brothers and sisters. Holy Hannah.
So
any of them your mom, your dad, or some weird relation?
Right, some weird relation. So Papa was a Rolling Stone. I'm actually my mom's only child.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
But on the adopted side of it, I have several siblings that adopted siblings. Biologically, I actually have 23 siblings.
Oh my goodness. 23.
My dad has 23 children, 24 children.
Wow.
So yeah, that in itself is a lot. I've been in situations where I've actually dated a niece, or went on date with a niece. And while on that date, I found out that was my niece. So
awkward.
Yeah, very awkward. So it was a crazy dynamic having an adopted family,
right?
Knowing who my biological mom and dad were, and then trying to incorporate all of that into my life. Living in the projects at a very young age. Like I said, at 12, started selling drugs, just hanging with the wrong crowds, but realizing that wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted, but I was just a victim of circumstance. I was, hey, this is what I knew, or this is what I'm supposed to do. Right. As I got older, though, even in high school, I was always that person that wanted to help out the younger kids. So once I got this basketball scholarship, I knew immediately I wanted to major in psychology. And actually, my goal was to be a child psychologist. Basketball, I ended up playing, and lucky for me, I was able to go play pro ball for a couple of years. I was like, to heck with school. I'm not going back to school to get to become a doctor.
I try to get me to go back.
I was like, a 4-year degree is enough for me. So, but with those life skills, with everything that I learned growing up where I grew up at, and then being fortunate enough to see the other side of life. For me, I could incorporate all of that and work with the individuals that I felt like they needed some assistance from me. So with me coaching basketball, I'm able to attract a lot of kids that's kind of their outlet. And on the other side of it, it's like, hey, this is bigger than basketball. Let's teach you, a lot of different skills. Some of those things that you're going to need later in life outside. So that's me.
Can you think of a time when you were a teenager where it was either an event or a person or something that kind of made you think that you wanted to do more? Because many times, I mean, just from people that I've talked to that kind of grown up in similar circumstances, sometimes that lifestyle is pretty awesome for a teenager in the projects. Like, it's not something that it's hard to give up. So
it really is, especially when you're 16, 17 years old and you're making $8,000 or $9,000 a week.
It's really
hard. It's really hard to give up.
Wow.
I'd say the event that really changed me or changed my thought process was my high school friend, Andre Vaden. He was stuck in a trunk. He also sold drugs. He was stuck in a trunk of a car with his newborn baby and was shot and killed, and then had the car set on fire. And then for me to find out that the person who did it was actually my cousin.
Oh, you're kidding.
So that was kind of, for me, a wake-up call to know that someone so close to me could do that to someone that was close to me.
Oh my gosh.
So at that point, it was like, hey, is this what I really want to do? And at that time, I was 17. I was a senior in high school. And it was like, I really want to keep doing this. Well, scholarship time came around and I received that scholarship. But then I'm sitting here thinking, I've got a pocket full of money, a pocket full of drugs. I drive a brand new Cadillac. I'm 17 years old.
Yeah.
So it was really a hard decision. And then more friends of mine were either arrested or there was a situation, I hope we still have time, but there was a situation where have you guys ever seen New Jack City movie?
Mm-hmm. I've seen parts of it. I've never seen the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. In New Jack City, Nino Brown took over a building, and that building was called Carter. So myself and a few other people basically took over a building downtown Indianapolis, and we were selling drugs out of that. And one day, DEA, FBI, they busted into the apartment building next door to us. There was just an alley that separated the two buildings. They busted into that apartment, and there were 3 guys that were selling drugs. They were from Detroit. So when we hear the police, we run out the front door of the building we're in. And as I get out the front door, I see someone fly out of a 3rd floor window into the middle of the street. And unbeknownst to me, I see guns, I see badges, and I hear, "Get down, get down, get down," as this person who was thrown or jumped out of this window, they got up and tried to run. I was standing right next to undercover detective. At this time, I had drugs in my pocket. I had a gun in my waist. I had money in my pocket. They didn't know who I was, but just to see that was my wake-up call.
Wow.
So I knew I didn't want to be thrown out of a building. I knew I didn't want to go to prison. It was like either go to school or keep living this lifestyle and become a statistic. That is what I didn't want to do.
So you really came from the bar was set pretty low. When your bar is not to get thrown out of a 3rd-story window.
Oh man.
Yeah, pretty much.
The only place to go is up.
And it's funny that you say that because, after basketball, after graduating, all that, and then I end up being hired by the city of Indianapolis directly by the mayor to run this program, or to help run this program, to keep young people off the streets, keep violent people off the streets.
Right.
I was interviewed by a news anchor who actually covered the story that I just told you guys about. He was like, wait, I think I interviewed you. So he goes back to 1992 and he finds this interview that he did where I'm like, no, I'm not talking. And he was like, that's you in that red and black starter jacket.
See, I told you guys, his life is far more interesting than mine. I just have a sister daughter. That's it.
Well, here's the beauty of it, though. I look at the interconnection of you two. This is simply amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff that Rob just talked about, this is the stuff that you see in movies, and that's only really the tip of the iceberg. And I don't think the general listener or the viewer of the YouTube or whatever it might be, they understand that this is real and is a normal way of life, and is
very real.
I mean, you're talking 8,000 to 9,000 a week. Heck, that's more than I make right now, man. That's insane. And so it's a very enticing kind of path. So once you hit that point where you said you don't want to become a statistic, who helped you out? Who did you seek out, or who came to your aid? Because inevitably someone had to come over and be some kind of mentor. No, you said no.
It was really just me.
Wow.
And literally living that lifestyle and seeing friends that I was selling drugs with or doing, whatever in the world with, to see those people die, or to see those people be arrested and go to prison. And, at this time in the early 1990s, there was the war on drugs.
Yeah.
And so to see that, if you get caught with a small amount of marijuana, cocaine, heroin, whatever, it was a life sentence.
Wow.
Literally, you were getting, 10 to 15 years for each gram that you were in possession of.
Wow.
I knew that that's not something that I wanted. So really, it was just that consciousness in me that said, hey, I don't want to go to prison.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take this basketball scholarship. I'm pretty good at basketball. Why not go to school? Why not stay out of trouble?
Yeah.
And so really that was it for me. And then when I came home, those temptations were still there.
Sure.
But I had to make a conscious decision to say, yeah, I'm not going that route again, especially to see individuals that were really close to me, who were in the streets selling drugs with me, who became addicted to the same drugs that we were selling.
Wow.
Or they were either addicted or they were dead. And I didn't want either of those.
No.
And so I've told him before that I commend him on the person that he is now, because he has every excuse in the world to be somebody completely different.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, but he's a great person. I mean, he's a community servant, like I said in my email. And he puts people first, other than me when he beats me up. But he puts people first, and he has such a kind heart, and he has every excuse in the world to be somebody totally. He can be a jerk and get away with it. Have the excuse to be a jerk, but he's not. So I've told him before that I commend him for that. And I'm glad to be his partner, because he's just a great person. All right, I'm gonna get off my soapbox.
I'll pay you later.
One thing that strikes me though is, here we are. I'm under the assumption you had to have a mentor, or you got over the anger and you just go over here. But it's funny because you're showing a successful route. Sometimes you have to be your own mentor and then learn along the path. Rob, that's what you did.
Well, actually, it's what both of them did.
He said, "No, I still use that as fuel today." The anger as a fuel is like, come on, up yours. I'm going to go do this myself. That it is a motivation. Those motivations are very strong motivations, and just to understand the type of of tests and Rob, on the Temptations, when you went back, I mean, that lucrative type of living that you could potentially still make and turn your back on it, man. I want to tell you, that's not an easy thing at all. I know
it
you
really
know.
isn't. It's not easy at all.
Yeah.
And it's funny because so my oldest son is 24. My youngest son, biologically, is 19. He'll be 20 this year. He and I are really, really close.
Right.
He never knew anything about how I lived as a child
Right.
or as a teen until I started working for the police department and started working for the mayor.
This was just about what, 4 years ago?
Yeah, this was just about 4 or 5 years ago. And so he sees this interview on television. And so he immediately, speaking of him, he just called me. So he immediately called me and said, "Hey, yo, Dad, is there something you need to tell me? We need to talk." So I had to sit down and have a conversation with him about the lifestyle that I was living when I was 16, 17 years old, because he knew nothing about that. You know, to him, his dad was this perfect guy. All my life he felt like I was perfect, and I had this great childhood and all these different things. And so when I had to sit down with at the time, my 15-year-old son to say, "Hey, yes, these things are true. This is the life that I live," he was blown away.
Yeah.
But I had to also explain that, everything that I went through was perfect. It was the perfect situation because it gave me the opportunity to learn how to raise my son once I had one, and how to keep him away from the environment that I was used to. And so, yeah.
Wow.
That's
And
awesome.
how many kids do you help out nowadays? And Zaynah, I'm sure you know a lot of these kids as well, but what type of what kind of amazing things have you seen amongst the kids that you are working with right now?
So I've had hundreds of kids that ended up playing in the NBA or the WNBA, or they have gone on to college, and to at least have a college. I've had kids that unfortunately they were murdered, or they murdered someone and was sentenced to prison. So I've seen both ends of the spectrum, the good and the bad. And I try not to dwell on the bad, because that takes away from all of those kids who said, "Hey, no, I want to go a different route." I've had kids that come into my basketball program, and I knew that they smoked weed every day. I knew that they sold drugs. And instead of me being that person saying, "You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this," I said, "Hey, I'm just going to offer them something else. We didn't really talk about what they were doing wrong. Let's talk about the things that you can do right." And then once I reeled them in and I earned that trust, they'd kind of open up to me, say, "Hey, this is what's going on in my household. Can you help me?" Or, "Hey, this is what's going on. I don't want to do this anymore."
Right.
So that was kind of my end, because so many times adults will point the finger at kids. And the first thing kids do is they put up this brick wall and they stop listening to you. They stop, they're looking past you instead of looking at you. So for me, it was like, let me meet you where you are. When I was working for the police department, I was one of the few people working for the police department and for the mayor that I went to the projects. I knocked on the door. I said, "Hey, because I work with the police department, because I partnered with the FBI and DEA, you're on this list that says you're going to be murdered, be jailed, or be a shooter in a given period of time. So before we get to that point, let's sit down and have a conversation."
Dang. Oh my goodness. So
Imagine that knocking on your door.
well, not only that, so just knowing that they have that data and the data is going to do that, and then you go and just wow.
Yeah, I was that person. I was the one who,
earned their trust.
Yeah, the chief of police and the mayor said, "Hey, here's this list. And because people in the community knew who I was, they trusted me. Like she said, I earned their trust because she likes to say I was the mayor of Indianapolis.
Everybody.
I did. I knew everyone because of my personality, because of what I did, because of basketball and coaching and refereeing, and I knew people.
Yeah.
What city was this?
In Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah.
So then I would get this list, and I'm like, oh shoot, I know this kid. I know their parents.
Yeah.
And so that was my way to say, hey, you know who I am. Let's talk. And so I was able to save a lot of people, a lot of kids. Some were like, hey, you know, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. You can't save them all. So I had to really focus on the ones that I could save. Although, you know, it was really unfortunate when I got that call at 2:00 in the morning that said, you know, Joe Schmo and 3 other people were murdered. And I had to go find to that.
Man, I'm blown away by your story because it's just so raw, and just to know how many people that you've helped, but also just the amount of just sheer grit and courage. I mean, go knock on the door. Hey, you're going to be one of these guys. And I mean, that in and of itself is saying something because they probably have a tendency to want to, what are you talking about, man? That kind of thing right there. But just to know that you're right in the mix of it. It makes me feel like I've done hardly anything, man.
Well, just to give you an idea of how dangerous my job was. Once, you know, I let the mayor and police department know that, hey, I'm moving to Arizona. You know, my wife has this opportunity. Well, wasn't my wife at the time, but, you know, we have this opportunity. I'm leaving. The person that they hired to do what I did was murdered 4 or 5 months after that because he went and knocked on the door and the person was like, I don't know you. Pow.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And so, you know, we were talking one day, I don't know if you remember, you know, I was like, man, that could have been me because I literally every day, that was my job. And although I carried a weapon and I had identification, all of that stuff, I never wanted people to think, or the people that I interacted with to think, oh man, that's the police. I'm not talking to you.
Yeah.
I work for the police department. It was more so, yo, this is who I am. Let's have a conversation. I'm not here to arrest you. So then I would do community events. And every time I did a community event, it was covered by the media, and there was a method to my madness. I wanted the media to cover it because I wanted those people that I would eventually talk to. I wanted them to know, oh, I saw him on TV. That's the guy that is knocking on doors, helping, you know, have utilities paid, giving food out to the community, but also saving you. So it made my job a little easier because they're like, oh, that's Rob Fry, the community guy. And I used to hear that all the time. But then when I show up to your door and I've got a walkie-talkie and a gun, you're really not that nervous because like, oh, I saw you on TV.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll tell you, I for volunteer work ages ago, I did a lot of work in the projects, and I'll tell you the two thing. Well, reputation is everything, and I can tell that you developed a reputation where people felt comfortable with you, and that literally probably not only saved your life, but that was a conduit to help all these kids. Yeah. And the thing that I mean, that I just think is so awesome, and it kind of gives me goosebumps is, you know, you may have saved some kids, but you've just started a generational change that will last forever.
And that was the idea, yes.
And that, I mean, I can't even, that's got to be so rewarding for you to know that you've created that kind of legacy. That's so awesome.
It is a fantastic legacy. And I also wanted to go back over to Zaynah again, though. 15 years old, you're pregnant with your first kid. And you know that this is an event that it happens more often than not. So for all the individuals that might be going through this, male, female, what what would you say? Hey, it's not hopeless, man. Or what would you say to them? Because that, look at you now, you would have never have guessed that that was something that happened. It's not in your demeanor, but just for those that might be in a similar situation, what would you share with them?
Yeah. So your life is not over.
Mhm.
It happens. Your life is not over. Continue to push through. Use that child as, as motivation.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to set a good example for my daughter. I didn't want her to ever have to say, well, my mom was a teenage parent, so I didn't have certain opportunities like my other friends did.
Right.
So I worked very hard. I gave her up for adoption when she was born, as
Right.
as a result of me wanting to impact her life
Right.
in that way. So if my parents hadn't adopted her, then I wouldn't have been able to go into the military,
Mhm.
which means I wouldn't have had that foundation that I was able to have with the military, education paid for, things like that. So
Right.
I would just say your life is not over.
Right.
Keep your dreams, follow your dreams. Family is a support. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a really good support system. Not everybody has that.
Right.
But I was really lucky, and I leaned in on them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and there was some challenges with that. My mother, bless her heart, she has the best intentions, but she's very overbearing. She's very overbearing. But there was some friction with us for a while because she was the adopted mother.
Yes.
I was the
Yes.
biological mother, but she was the adopted mother. She was the one raising the child. So really what I wanted, it didn't fly. So I wanted, my daughter to be raised like this. And my mom was like, nope, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And so, there was some friction. There still is kind of. My kid is 22.
That'll probably never stop.
There still is. It never stops. My mom and I just kind of a very intense discussion a few months ago about how she interacts with my daughter. So I'm there trying to stand up for her, and she's always known that I was her mother.
Right.
So
Right.
my parents did a very good job of making sure that she knew that they were grandparents.
Yeah.
And I was still mom, even though I wasn't living in the house with
Right.
her.
Right.
So she's always known that I was her mom. But we're kind of we're friends. We're
Yeah.
friends, and she would call me her best friend. So anytime
Oh.
she needs anything, advice, anything that you wouldn't expect a young adult to talk to their parents about, she
Yeah.
talks to me about.
Oh.
And I appreciate that. My husband sometimes is like, I can't believe y'all are talking about that. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it. And I'm glad that she's comfortable with me enough to have those conversations. She's an adult now. So, but yeah, I was very, very fortunate to have that support with my family. And I would just tell people in that same circumstances, your life is not over.
Yeah.
You can still do what you want to do. It's going to be hard work. It's not going to be easy. It wasn't
Yes.
easy giving my child up for adoption. It wasn't easy living in a different country from my child, because I was stationed at one point. I was stationed in Maryland, and my daughter and my parents were stationed in Japan.
Oh,
So
man.
we were living in different countries. So
Right.
that wasn't easy. But I think looking back, I would have done it all the same.
Yeah.
I would have done it all the same. And she's very proud of who I am now, and my accomplishments. And she looks up to me. So she's not mad or bitter or anything like that. We didn't live together for 10 years.
Yeah.
We still have a really, really solid relationship. So
Well,
I wouldn't change
Fantastic.
anything.
I'd like to throw in there too that as accomplished as Zaynah is, you can also tell that you didn't become just like a level 1 parent. You guys are such incredible parents to your children. It's so awesome. And I don't know if you remember, but the first time I really had like kind of just a little non-work discussion with Zaynah is we were in the hallway over by the lab, and somehow we got on the topic of travel and how important it is to give people, give your children like different perspective and to see other people and that type of stuff. Give us a quick rundown on what parts of the globe have you drug your children to, and what have been the benefits of that?
Yeah, so I've taken my kids to Southeast Asia, so Malaysia, Singapore.
Yeah.
I've taken them to Dubai. I've taken my son to Europe. We did a 3-country European vacation a few years ago. My daughter's been to Thailand.
They were both born in Japan.
Both of my kids were born in Japan. Yeah. And to me, that's very important. One, because my parents did the same thing for me. Growing up, being in the military, I was always exposed to diversity. And, I've told one of my friends before that, I didn't know that interracial marriage was frowned upon until I was well into my 20s.
Yeah.
So I was already in the military. I come back to the States and started hearing inklings about, oh, we don't like this. We don't like this. And I'm like, what? I'm used to seeing that being in the military. So I grew up with people from all over the world. I grew up hearing all different types of languages and eating all types of foods. And I think that has also helped, frame who I am now.
And helped in our relationship.
Yeah.
And I say that because the way she grew up, me growing up was totally opposite.
Yeah.
Literally totally opposite. So there are things that I hear that are being said that she's like, oh, that doesn't bother me. But for me, I'm like, yo, that's not acceptable. Interracial relationships were not a thing in the projects.
Sure. Yeah.
So fortunately for me, being able to go off to college and play basketball, I got a chance to experience something outside of the hood. But again, there are a lot of things that I really, really respect her for, because she's had the opportunity to see a totally different side of life than what I grew up with, and then vice versa, because we have conversations. She was like, well, what's wrong with that? And so, I say, well, where I'm from, when someone says or does something, this type of thing is not acceptable. And so we talk about the differences, why it isn't acceptable, and then on her end, why she doesn't see a problem. So there's that educational piece that goes on back and forth with the two of us. I really, really appreciate her for that, because it opens my mind to a lot of different things. And I think it goes the opposite direction as well.
You know how many nuggets of wisdom that you folks are invoking right now? You have all these things. I mean, just the assumption would be, hey, they're on the same page. They've been through some similar experiences. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
Not at all.
But the most important thing is you have the discussions about this. And how easy is it to not have that discussion about it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I like hearing his perspective, and and he likes hearing my perspective, like he just said, because we came from 2 totally different backgrounds. So some of the things that, he tells me, I'm like, wow, okay, well, I see it from that angle. However, this is how I feel about it. So we just had that discussion. It was like last week. There was something that somebody said to me at work, and I told him, and he just he lost it. He's like, are you kidding me? And I was like, well, I don't see a problem with it. And he's like, no, this is why it's a problem. And so we talk back and forth, and I understand what he's saying. And I'm still, I still feel the way I do. But it's just, having that conversation. We're open books with each other, and with our kids as well. We're the same way with our kids. We teach our kids the same thing, and like, regarding the travel thing, and and the cultural diversity, being able to pass what my parents allowed, or the opportunities that my parents afforded my siblings and I, being able to pass that on to my kids, and now my grandson. I can't wait to be able to take him out of the country, so that he can have those same experiences, because there's so many people like him, where he came from, that he never had an opportunity to travel outside of the country, and to just really appreciate the differences in people, and their cultures and things like that. We talk about food all the time, so I'll try anything because I grew up in the military. I grew up around people from all over. I have tried it all. This one, on the other hand, he wants chicken, and that's it. That's it. And he wants the chicken a certain way. He will not eat everything. He's very picky. So we differ in that. And sometimes it's frustrating when I'm trying to get him to try new things, and he's like, nope. But I'm sure he gets frustrated with me trying to push new things on him too. So we have this trip coming up in October. We're going to Dubai, and I cannot wait to see what he does with food, because it's going to be rice and vegetables for him.
Hey, it's pretty good stuff.
I have to ask real quick, and I've realized with you two that I'm not going to assume anything, because you guys blow all the words. So when you guys got married, you're coming from like completely different backgrounds. I mean, like, did this synergy happen from the start? Is that something you guys had to work into? Like,
so let me tell you, I was stalked. She stalked me.
Thank you guys for the interview. Thank you.
So after Idris told me that, hey, my mom has a crush on you, all this stuff, I get a random inbox on Instagram saying, hey, do you know anyone that can fix my air conditioner in my car?
Smooth.
Like,
well, because he knows everybody in Indianapolis. He's the mayor of Indianapolis. So he's the perfect person.
I'm thinking, this is kind of weird, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I do. Forgot about it. I get another inbox like a week later. Hey, just checking. Hey, do you know anyone? Oh yeah, let me call my cousin. I know I've got somebody. And then it was pretty much like, look, dude, I'm trying to take you on a date. You want to go on a date with me?
You're a little dense there, huh? A little slow on the uptake.
He wasn't picking up what I was throwing.
Not at all. Because I'm thinking, she's almost 10 years younger than me. She's cute, kind of sexy, but yeah, I wasn't thinking anything about her.
Oh, that's funny.
They say opposites attract, and that really is the case, because we are from two totally different ends of the spectrum. Yeah. And it was funny because on our very first date, we had a dinner date and went bowling. We kind of had this conversation. We were talking about lifestyles and, our upbringing and all these different things. And if you could have seen the look on her face, she was in tune, like she was paying attention, but I was an open book. I was like, hey, this is where I come from. This is what I've been through. And she had this look on her face like, what have I gotten myself into?
Right, because like you said, Mo, like his story is like something you would see on TV.
Oh yeah. So
here I am sitting at the table on a date with a guy who's lived a life that I would expect to have seen on TV. I'm like, and then knowing where I came from, like, is this something that I really want to get myself into? Right. But I was intrigued. I wanted to learn more. So
it's just so cool though. Like you guys, it's just like this synergistic relationship where a lot of people, that relationship probably would have lasted a couple of years and the differences would have been so large that, but it seems to me like kind of the secret sauce for you guys is that open communication.
Oh yeah.
Everything's on the table. Everything's open. I mean, I look at my marriage, the time I get in trouble the most is when I just don't say what's up.
Don't talk.
And I'm really good at that. So I'm a little jealous of kind of what you guys have going on there because it's so cool to see.
It is
Yeah,
way
it's just kind of
cool.
like whatever, she said, literally, she says whatever.
Well, he's my best friend, and I would do the same thing with my best friend that I grew up with. And so he's my best friend. I would talk to him about anything, even if it were, a topic that I know that it may, upset him. And I would expect him to do the same thing with me. So, just keeping that communication open, and that's how I hope we're going to last.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. You folks are too stubborn not to say something. And the thing is, once you do say something, you're on the same page. It's obvious. And I love this because again, we don't have that open communication like this. And sometimes the emotional grit to be able to take that. Right. And
if we're not on the same page, we respect each other's stance and how each other feels.
Yeah.
There's a compromise that goes on.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in your home. There's no doubt about it.
We could definitely have a reality show.
Oh yeah.
We could definitely have a reality show. We haven't even incorporated my 11-year-old into this conversation. You would have been laughing the entire time. He's a character in and of himself.
We had to give him specific instructions. Stay upstairs, not to come to the stairs to make faces.
That would have added to it though. And then the people that are listening to her going, what's going on? What's going on?
I'll tell you, one of my favorite Facebook feeds is you guys. I'll tell you. I love it. That's awesome.
Well, I can see there's so many people that could benefit from you. And I hope you don't mind if I start passing the story along here, because this has burst a lot of different assumptions that you have. And it's not all about all the hoorah stuff, right? That we get and we think that people need in order to succeed. It's obvious that you folks did do a lot of self-starting and created your own opportunities. I thank you for sharing those wonderful stories. So,
and just really quick in closing is, I know you were talking about doing like a basketball camp here in the area. I've got someone I was telling Zaynah I need you to talk to. Okay. And also Zaynah she wants to get on the speaking circuit as well. And so we need to start looking at some of the people that we've talked to and start making some connections. So even though you guys don't want it or don't need it, we want to give you some help. We want to help you guys on your journey as well as kind of a little form of payback.
Thank you. Networking is one of the biggest keys to success.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And speak with like-minded people, or to help someone in a situation that they don't know how, to get to that very next level. And I'm all about trying to help someone, or doing whatever. So,
or getting the help.
Yeah, or getting help.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much.
And all I can say is watch out, because it's going to open up big time.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate you guys.
Thank you very much.
You got it. Hey.
It was a pleasure.